Okay, welcome back. Anyway, so we've done some smaller changes here, but for the time being, I'm assuming that we collectively have no idea what the system.config.js file actually is. So let's talk about it a little bit. SystemJS is a dynamic module loader. The quick start uses SystemJS to load libraries as Angular and our modules. It is using the lazy sort of loading, which means that it will load modules only and only when they are actually needed, which is actually a rather efficient behavior in terms of the resource consumption. Anyway, the file is used for configuring the system.js. In map, so right here inside of map, we tell SystemJS where to look for modules. For example, all at Angular modules will be searched in node underline modules at Angular. Our source code is inside the app folder. Therefore, our whole application is in the app module. However, the Typescript compiler will compile files to the TMP folder which we have created. So let me just go ahead and do this. There we go. So you have the TMP folder here, which we have actually created. So SystemJS needs to look for the app module inside of tmp/app. Simple as that. Also, our main file for the module app is in main.js. So if we just go down a little bit, as you can see, it says app, and then it says main.js, default extension JS. So our main file for the module app is in fact main.js, which means that if we load the app module, app/main.js will be loaded as well. It is an entry point. If any of you are familiar with C or C++ or Java or similar programming languages to those, you will know that you have a main function and then you call the main first, and then everything else gets called pretty much from the main. So it's that principle of it functions under such principles, or take that with a grain of salt. It's similar to those principles. Let's put it that way. Anyway, the next file that we're going to go ahead and take a look is typings.json as well. So actually, it's a folder. No, sorry. Need to God. There we go. It's right down below. Don't look at the folder for the time being. We'll get to that eventually. Anyway, this is a pretty short explanation. This is using typings. We can install TypeScript definitions for JavaScript packages. Some packages like ES6-shim are not originally developed in TypeScript, but in JavaScript. So using typing, we can install TypeScript definitions for them. You can think about them as wrappers. So there needs to be something that wraps it and that basically translates it, or you can think of it as an adapter. The official terminology is actually that this is a wrapper, but you can think of it as some sort of a translation. When you write something in JavaScript, you need to translate it to TypeScript, so to say. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, gonna bid you farewell here, and we're gonna go ahead and continue along with these files to see what each one of them does, the ones that we're going to use anyway. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna take a look at is the index.html. So it's right here. Anyway, you have this, well, not a very large file, but here our application will begin, and here we will include all that needs to be included in order for our project to actually come alive. Anyway, these are standard HTML tags, so you open them and you close them, and then we have the head tags for the header. And then we have a title here. The title will be Angular 2 Quick Start. It's, of course, something that will, in all likelihood and in all probability, be altered to suit our needs, as we're not going to name our application Angular 2 Quick Start. We're going to name it something else. Anyway, this is the title that you will see in the browser tab. Down below, we have a char set UTF-8, meaning that you will be able to use characters from pretty much any keyboard, and take that with a grain of salt, because I'm not sure about the Chinese characters, but pretty much anything from the Western world you will be able to use with UTF-8. Down below, the viewport, content, etc. I'm pretty sure that you can actually conclude what this stands for, what this is. It says width equals device width. This particular line is here so that your site would scale in accordance with the device that is basically accessing it. By this, I mean if you're accessing it from your phone and if you're accessing it from your computer with a 24-inch screen, there are two completely different things. Obviously, one is 24-inch, the other one is maybe 6 at max. So the site needs to scale in accordance with the width of the device's screen, which is very nice, meaning that you don't need to make actually two separate sites for mobile and for desktop versions, but rather instead the same site will simply scale to the size of the screen in a proper manner. Okay, down below we have a link basically for the style that will be used on our site. We will, in all likelihood, probability, use Bootstrap, as well, pretty much everybody uses it, and it's very simple and it's very good. So why not? Okay, so down below we have, these things are generic. So they just need to be there. You don't need to study them in great detail. But let me just go ahead and go over them in the simplest possible manner. So the first line, the first script that will be plugged in here, it provides something like a compatibility layer so that our site would work on older browsers. Although why anybody would use older browsers is actually beyond me. I really do not understand, since I know of no browser that you actually need to pay for to get updates, as you can freely update pretty much all of them. So why is that so? I have no idea. Why people use older browsers, I have no idea, but this makes perfect sense because people do use older browsers and we would like our application to work with pretty much every single browser out there. Therefore, we are gonna go ahead and utilize this script here. That's its purpose. The next one down below, now this is just basically needed by Angular so that it would function properly. Without it, it will not function properly. And Angular relies on it so that it would perform well. For the time being, I'm gonna go ahead and leave zones as they are. I'm not going to go ahead and dive deep into what zones are, how they function, etc., as this is a rather advanced subject in Angular and it's really not fit for beginning stages. Just how much isn't... Just leave it at what it is, and later on we will eventually stumble across... we will move into more advanced things once we have actually mastered the simplest of things. And then these things will be explained. For now, to explain it would actually make no sense of whatsoever. The definitions that I would give you would be basically hieroglyphs. Anyway, if you really are that interested at this point in time to know exactly what Zone.js does or what zones are in general here, go on to the net and there are plenty of definitions out there, but I assure you, you will find them very confusing at this point in time. Next up, you have Reflect.js. So this script basically allows for the usage of decorators, whose usage will be demonstrated later on along the merry way. Because kind of to explain the decorators now, again, it would be something, it would have a similar effect as me describing what zones are. Let me put it like this. I don't mean to insult anyone, especially not myself in this case. But imagine that you just started learning math and you're obviously not going to begin with trigonometric functions. You're going to begin with something like plus, minus, equals, etc. and then move on to the trigonometric functions. Same case here, except here we actually need to plug these things in a generic fashion so that the application would actually work at all. But we don't need to know immediately what each one of these scripts does, how it functions, as we will learn that along the merry way. So next up, we have systemsrc.js. Now this script, with this line, we're basically including SystemJS modular. And after this line, we can use it in our project, as from this point onwards, it actually exists. So this is a key concept to understand. So if we've plugged this in, this exists from this point on. It does not exist above. So you cannot use anything from here above. You can only use you can use things from here down below. That's how it is. Anyway, that's just a way of explaining it, a way of putting it, so to say. The SystemJS we've basically explained in the previous tutorial. I can remind you a little bit. Basically, SystemJS is a dynamic module loader. The quick start uses the SystemJS basically to load libraries and our modules as well. So I've just read a line from my notes, but if you didn't figure what SystemJS is to the fullest of extents, please feel free to go back a tutorial or two and check it out. Anyway, it's not terribly important at this point in time once again. Now, down below, we move into these, into the systemjs.config.js. So we need this script in order for the SystemJS to be configured in the first place. So keep that in mind. And down below, this final thing that we're going to import, this is actually probably the most interesting one. And this is something that you do need to know what it actually is. So here, our application begins. So at this line that I have highlighted, this is where our application will begin. And here, for the first time, we're actually loading something that is a part of our application. SystemJS will import the app module. So we've talked about that before. You have the app here. You see, let me just expand it. And main.js file. So this one right here. And basically, if it fails, where is it? There we go. So basically, if it fails, it's just going to catch the error. In our case, it really shouldn't fail. There is no reason for it. It's basically default configuration aside from some minor changes. But this is probably the most important and the most interesting line here. Down below, we have these strange tags. I mean, you've probably seen body tags, head tags, script tags before. But my app tags, you probably haven't seen before, and this is going to be explained later on as well. But for the time being, know that this part here where it says loading and 3 dots, before our application is imported and functional, loading 3 dots will be displayed on the screen. And we will get into the my app tags a little bit later on. For the time being, I'm going to go ahead and bid you farewell.